reporting. Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Steve Cohen of Tennessee. He's a member of the Judiciary Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. You heard that John Dowd, who was the president's lead lawyer at that time, you heard what his reaction is. Do you view this voicemail, and we got the transcript of it now, as possibly an effort to obstruct the Russia investigation?
Indeed, I do, Wolf, and I think there's been so much. Most of it was in the Mueller report, and Robert Mueller made it clear there were 10 instances of obstruction of justice, and but for the legal counsel's policy of not being able to, not indicting a president during his term, but the possibility, as Mueller said, to preserve evidence when people's memories were good for possible prosecution after he left office, and the fact that Congress is the proper body to look into misdeeds and criminal misdeeds by the president through impeachment. It's obvious there was lots of obstruction, and that's all that Trump and his team was doing. They were trying to get Sessions fired, to get Mueller fired. They fired Comey. They've now gone further and tried to stop people from giving over documents requested by the Judiciary Committee, testifying before the Judiciary Committee. This is an assault, really, on the American political system and the rule of law. As you also just heard, the Justice Department has decided not to hand over the transcripts of Michael Flynn's phone calls with the Russian ambassador at the time, Sergei Kislyak, even though the federal judge asked for those transcripts. Is there a legal justification to do that? Not that I can foresee. I was shocked to hear that, and I'm sure Judge Sullivan will be shocked. The federal district court judge should be honored his request at all times, and for them to cavalierly say they're not going to give it to him or there's no need for it is just amazing. They put themselves above the law, and the law is the federal judge. Now, you could appeal some rulings, and it goes all the way to the Supreme Court, but they didn't do that at all. They just basically thumbed their nose at him. And this is a serious breach of the rule of law, of our values, of our Constitution, and that's why impeachment's on the table. You know, I don't know what, some people think there's a method to Trump's madness. I think it's just madness. And I think people give him too much credit to think that he has somehow come up with some type of a way to entice Nancy Pelosi and or the rest of the Democrats to impeach him, and that he wants that. He doesn't want that. That would hurt his ego. He's a narcissist. He wants to go down in history as the greatest thing. Well, he thinks he is the greatest thing, but the greatest president ever. And he doesn't want to be thought of in the same terms as Andrew Johnson and Richard Nixon. And he's right now, in my opinion, a little bit beneath them. He may be right there with Buchanan. But he doesn't want that. I don't think he wants that to be next to his name, and he's concerned about history. He's also concerned about what would come out in an investigation. Congressman, you also heard these new details about how the president is reacting to seeing Robert Mueller on TV and hearing what the Attorney General, Bill Barr, is saying. He's very enthusiastic, we're told, about what Bill Barr, the Attorney General, is saying. Bill Barr is apparently gone to something's happened to him. He had a good reputation. His reputation is gone. And I don't understand it at all. He's got some kind of an agenda that has required him to become basically Donald Trump's Roy Cohn, Donald Trump's lackey, Donald Trump's consigliere. And everything, all of that collusion talk on the day that he released the report, that's not legal terminology. His refusal to accept the conditions that Jerry Nadler set up for him to testify before the Judiciary Committee was ridiculous. The Attorney General does not set the guidelines. He accepts and attends and testifies. And all this, it's just amazing what Barr's saying. And he's attacking, he's hurting the Justice Department that he's in charge of, and the FBI. And these are institutions that have played great parts in the rule of law and democracy. The Attorney General also says he analyzed Mueller's conclusions on obstruction. He determined that, and I'm quoting him now, many of the instances would not amount to obstruction. How do you interpret that comment from the Attorney General? Well, I think, he has an opinion that there has to be an underlying crime to have obstruction, and that's a very minority opinion, and he may be sticking to that. That may be the basis of it, but it's a very minority opinion off the wall, and most people don't ascribe to it. There were almost 1,000 former United States attorneys that signed a letter and said there was obstruction of justice. I would take a 1,000 to 1 rule as a pretty good margin of what the reality is about the legal elements present that can constitute obstruction of justice. And I think Robert Mueller was saying that in his report. I mean, he said no man should be above the law. The closing part of the report's about no person being above the law, not even the President of the United States. And his closing of his press conference last week about the American people need to be concerned about foreign interference in our elections. Bill Barr doesn't seem to be interested, nor does Trump, in foreign interference in our elections. They seem to be concerned with some thought that the origins of this investigation and thinking there was some political activity. There wasn't. I mean, there were some people in the team, Peter Strzok and somebody else there, that thought that Trump was a bad guy. But you get most people that work for FBI or the Justice Department, they've got college degrees, and if most people with college degrees thought that about Trump, I don't think it was any aberrant conduct, and certainly not reflective of the Justice Department or the FBI in general. Yep. But it was two people, and they had discussions, and their discussions were typical of people of their educational background.
Congressman Steve King, thanks so much for joining us.
Please, not King, Cohen.
Did I say Steve King? Steve Cohen. Thanks very much. Thanks for the correction. Appreciate it. Very, very different two guys. Thanks very much for joining us.
Very different.
All right. Thank you.